identify a particular person.
Good morning, everyone. 10:31, we're going to get started here. It is the February 24th Planning and Development public hearing, and I don't really have any comments this morning because it's actually going to be a fairly short one, we think. Senator Rahman, anything from you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ready to go?
Senator Gordon.
I'm looking forward to the public hearing today. Thank you.
Great. Representative Zullo.
Ditto.
Looking forward to seeing you this evening, Representative Zullo. Okay, up first, we actually, our first testifier could not be here today. So up first today, we have Representative Tony Scott. Welcome.
Thank you for having me today. Appreciate it. Thank you to Chair Rahman and Kavros DeGraw, Vice Chairs Needleman and Chafee, ranking members Gordon and Zullo, and the rest of the Planning and Development Committee for allowing me to speak and provide my testimony in favor of HB 6998, an act requiring the licensing of dog every 3 years. So I propose this bill personally as a dog owner. I've had conversations with town clerk's office and understanding the burden that is to do a license every year, dog license, especially in a 1 month period. It's really tight for the town clerk's offices. The main change to this existing statute is to streamline for both dog owners and the town clerk's office the dog licensing procedure. Since dog licenses require a rabies vaccination certificate, and those rabies vaccination certificates are traditionally 3 years in length, it seems very inefficient to force both parties to request a dog license yearly and submit the same rabies vaccination certificate for an additional 2 years. That is very redundant, and the certificate will already be on the town clerk's office file. I do suggest the committee with LCO to relook at the wording of section 1B, lines 21 to 30. There should not be a need for a yearly or annually, it says the word annually, submission of that vaccination certificate. Again, when you come in the first time to get that your license, you're going to submit that vaccination. I have one here of mine for my dog, and it's 3 years. It's good from July 8th, 2024 to July 8th, 2027. So once you put this certificate in, you do so, and then it's there for 3 years on file. To come back the next year, and then the next year after that to do the same thing, it just seems very repetitive and redundant when the certificate's not changing, it's already done and you're good. Obviously, if it runs out, you need to come in and do it. That's part of your job as a dog owner, and get that license and make sure it's on file as the right date and it's good for the timing to get your next license. So the ultimate benefit of this bill will be, number one, it's going to save dog owners money by not having to keep filing every year. The dog owners' time is also in remembering to make sure that they're doing this right. There's signs up in most towns where they put them up and make sure that they notify people it's dog license month. But it's also just having that pressure of remembering and the time. It's also going to save some time, the town clerk's time and money. From a time standpoint, obviously doing it once every 3 years versus once every year is going to help. I know Westcog, Francis Pickering put some time in, some testimony in saying that is going to be a benefit, and trying to streamline that process would be beneficial. And in fact, I think town clerks' offices lose money every single time they do this. They have to mail it out, they have to pay for the tags, all that stuff. If they only have to do it once every 3 years versus once every year, I think that's going to help them actually save a couple bucks here and there too in the office. But I want to be very clear, because I did see some of the opposition in the testimony, and I want to be very clear. This is not in any way change the fact that dog owners must have their dog's rabies. Have rabies vaccination certificate, and that's not going to change. This is going to happen, and I'm not asking that change at all. This is make sure that the dogs are protected so that all the other dogs and people in the town are protected too. So I just want to make very clear that is not any purpose of this proposal.
Thank you so much. And thank you for clarifying that. As a dog owner, I love this bill. I think any of the dog owners probably love this bill because it is a hassle, and it is a hassle for our towns. And like you said, they're probably, I was, when it first came in, I thought, oh, I wonder if this is a loss to the towns, but they're already losing because of all the things that they have to do to make it work. And certainly that narrow window is not helpful. So I think we will absolutely take section 1B under advisement. We appreciate that information as well. Any questions? I think I see Representative Zullo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just one, and it's confirmatory mostly. I'm pretty sure I heard you say it. The goal is not to increase the cost. So we would, I forget if it's a $12 license or whatever it is. We're not looking to double or triple the license fee in exchange for a longer term license, right? We're going to keep the fee the same, but just extend the term.
Correct. Yeah, I think it depends if your dog is neutered or spayed. I think it's like $7 plus there's a little additional fee, or if they're not spayed or neutered, then I think it's like $11 or $12. Yeah, so that would just stay the one time to get the license, which would be a 3-year license. It would be that same cost. So in fact, it would ultimately save money. And like I mentioned, from a town clerk standpoint, every time they have to do that license process, it actually costs them more money than actually they're making in. I think they get $1 based on the current language in the bill for that to cover that cost. And it's definitely over $2 at least for them to do so. So in fact, it'll save the money for the town and the clerk's office, but also save money for those dog owners.
I appreciate the clarification. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Haynes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. Is there any likelihood of turning the dog licensing, because it's really a state license, to an automated system where you can just go in and go to the state website and license your dog, and it goes through the state, and then it's done, and it's not, you don't have to tax the local town's town clerk on it, especially like Tony just said, there's $1 that goes to the town?
Yeah, if that's directed towards me, I think you know, I don't know the statute well enough to understand if that's something that can physically be done through the state. Traditionally, it's done through the local towns, so that they have the stuff on file there, because, you know, incidents happen where there's a dog bite or something like that, and they traditionally try to get back to the town clerk's office, understand if that dog has a rabies vaccination, so they know how to treat that animal or person immediately. Obviously, if it's outside of traditional hours, you know, if it happens in the middle of the night or something like that, they might not be able to get that information immediately. But I couldn't see why, if there's not a state portal or some way that they can reference that dog, they could do that. But I specifically couldn't answer that specifically, if that could be something that could be taken to the state level.
Yeah, but I mean, if it was on, it's just as an FYI, if it was on a state portal, then to your point, in the middle of the night when this happens, they can just go to the website, look it up, say, yep, this dog has what it has, or it doesn't have what it has, but it will be available 24/7. So it might be a way to solve a lot of different issues if we were to do that. But obviously that needs to be written into legislation somewhere. But just an aside, that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Rep. Haynes. I am not, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Winter.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for your testimony. One issue I wanted to clarify, the Connecticut Veterinary Medical Association says the first rabies vaccine a dog receives is only known and recognized to be effective for 1 year. So how does the bill handle that if the first vaccine is for 1 year, but then subsequent vaccines are for 3 years?
Yeah, I would say, and that's why going back to looking at that section 1B, I think we can look back at that and say the license needs to match the years of the vaccination certificate,
Okay.
as an example. So I think we could just tweak the word to match it, because if it is only 1 year for that first time, because the dog's smaller, maybe, that could be a possibility of just tweaking it to, again, the language to make it match. The license matches the vaccination certificate. So I think that is possible. My dog is a little bit older, so I'm getting 3 years on mine the last couple of times. But that is totally feasible and totally possible. And I would support that, you know, absolutely, as a way to make sure that the license matches the certificate. I'm 100% supportive of every dog having a rabies vaccine. I do not want to, in any way, shape, or form, think that we're trying to subvert that certificate and that vaccination. So if that needs to make it work for that first year, I think we can make that work from a language standpoint with LCO.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank
Yeah.
you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I think that'll be an easy JFS language
Yeah.
adjustment. Representative Delnicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for Representative for coming forward with that, because town clerks really have so many hats that they're wearing and so much going on that they have to record and handle. And if there's an opportunity to actually reduce some of the burden that lies in the town clerk's office, this very well could be a great avenue here. And I'm struck with the fact that many a time we put mandates on towns that cost them money. This is a situation where they could be saving money through something as simple as doing exactly what you've proposed here. So I think it's a sound idea. I think it's a good step forward. And now we've got to take a look and see what else we can do to help the town clerks out in reducing some of the paperwork that they have to do there. So I want to thank you for coming forward with this proposal. And I'll be blunt, it makes a lot of sense, and you certainly aren't barking up the wrong tree.
I knew that was coming from somewhere. The call's coming from inside the house. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It wasn't going to come from me. Representative Scott, thank you for raising this bill. I apologize for being late. And if you might have mentioned it, I apologize. But you're going to move from annual to every 3 years. And I completely understand reducing the load pressure. But have you talked to any of your town officials in regards to a potential loss of revenue? The idea that they are getting revenue every single year, and budgets are very, very tight. Have you given any consideration or gotten any feedback in regards to the potential loss of revenue to every 3 years instead of 1?
Yeah, one of the testimonies that's in currently that you guys can have access to is from the Connecticut Town Clerks Association. I think they're speaking next, and they could talk to this a little bit more. But they actually lose money every time they have to do a dog license. So the less having to do license, they're going to lose less money. So theoretically, they are not gaining revenue, but they're losing less revenue, spending less expenditures because they are doing that. I think they say they make $1 and it's over $2 every time they have to do a license. So by doing it less often, actually saving money theoretically.
Well, that's a great insight, and I wouldn't have thought that way. And thank
Me
you
neither. Yeah.
from that diligence effort. I think as I came in, they were talking about vaccination and shots. Is there an annual requirement to maintain those kind of track record of the necessary safety shots, or is it going to the every 3 years when you're renewing the license to have those vaccination shots?
Yeah, I was just having a conversation with Rep. Winter, and in the first year, it sounds like that. And again, I'm not a veterinarian. I'm not trying to play one today for sure. That you might only get 1 year vaccination certificate for that dog when it's a puppy, when it's young. But then after that, it's usually 3 years. Like my dog here, I have 3-year vaccination certificate. So the idea is that certificate will go on file with the town clerks. They have it. They know that for this situation, for my dog, for 3 years, they have a vaccination for the rabies covered. In that first year, potentially, if we tweak the language a little bit, they'll be covered for that first year. And then when they come back for renewal after 1 year, then if they have that vaccination for 3 years, then they can cover that for a 3-year license. So, so yes, they will have that vaccination. They'll have the certificate and it'll be on file with the town clerks.
Well, I appreciate the homework and the diligence that you shared, and thank you for raising the bill, and thank you for testifying. Thank you for your good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And Senator Rahman.
Thank you, Scott. Introduce this bill. I really love this bill. And my co-chair and me, we're going to push this. But it's a really easy fix. JFS out. I think we are ready to do.
Good.
Thank you.
I thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. And I think finally, no other questions at this time.
I hope you guys have shorter ones this week. A meeting. I see only a few people signed up, so good luck.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. And we'll see you tonight.
Yep.
Up next, we have Leon Davidoff of the Connecticut Town Clerks Association. Sir, when you're ready, unmute and off you go. Good to see you.
Good morning, committee chairs, Senator Rahman and Representative DeGraw, and other distinguished members of the Planning and Development Committee. I'm Leon Davidoff, West Hartford Town Clerk, and a member of the Connecticut Town Clerks Association Legislative Committee. On behalf of the CTCA, I'm testifying in opposition to House Bill 6998, an act requiring the licensing of dogs every 3 years. The CTCA has submitted written testimony, which I respectfully request become part of the public record. Licensing and vaccinations of dogs are important to the public health and safety of our communities. It should be noted that in order for dogs to be boarded and to attend doggy daycare, the dogs must be current on their vaccinations, including rabies and sometimes parvovirus. Prior to the issuing of any license by the town clerk's office, the dog owner must provide proof of a current rabies vaccination. In West Hartford, as of today, almost 4,000 dogs have been licensed this fiscal year. In addition to receiving a numbered dog tag, which varies in color and shape each year, dog owners are provided with a paper copy of a license, which prominently displays the rabies expiration date. Dog owners find the information about the rabies expiration date to be quite helpful. As noted in our written testimony, CTCA has previously and continues to support the annual licensing of dogs for the following reason. Annually licensing assures rabies vaccinations are up to date. It is very unclear how Section 1B of the bill would be enforced if the term of the license would be extended to 3 years. Thus, it would be difficult to track down owners who do not submit rabies documentation on an annual basis. The current language of the bill would make it more difficult for town clerks to maintain accurate and up-to-date information that is shared with the town's animal control officers. And thirdly, currently the number of dogs licensed in each community is below industry average, according to the Secretary of Agriculture. A change to lengthen the period of time for licensing would only serve to lower the industry average. Lastly, as noted in our written testimony, over the past several years, processing costs have indeed steadily increased for the licensing of dogs. Yet it should be noted that the fees have not changed since 2003. Further, the town clerk's office only collects $1 per license issued. With this said, the Town Clerks Association would be supportive of legislative change, increasing the town clerk's revenue to $2 per license. Currently, a license costs $8 for a neutered or spayed dog and $19 for a dog that is not neutered or altered. I appreciate you taking the time to listen to my testimony and respectfully request that House Bill 6998 not be adopted.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I do see a question from Representative Dubitsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for coming in. How many town clerks does your organization represent?
169, sir.
It's all of them.
That's correct.
Okay. What happens in the 1-year period? What happens if a dog owner gets a license and then during the period of that year has the dog neutered? Do they get a refund of some sort?
No, sir. Upon the next registration year, they would show proof of neutering or being spayed, and the fee would decrease from 19 to 8.
Okay, so I assume it would be the same for a 3-year under this bill. So if you have the dog neutered the day after you register, you don't get a refund for the 2 years and change that the dog would be neutered, right?
I presume under the way the bill is currently written, there would not be a refund, sir.
Well, I thank you for that. Have you had a chance to look at the other bills on the agenda that affect the municipalities?
I only volunteered on behalf of the Connecticut Town Clerks Association, sir, to speak on this bill. So no, the answer is no.
Okay, so do you have any comments, or does the Town Clerks Association have any comments on SB 1341, an act concerning local government?
Sir, I believe that our committee looked at all the bills and has not submitted any testimony, so there will not be any testimony provided on any of those bills, sir.
Okay, so the town clerks don't have any comment on that bill?
That's correct, sir.
Okay. All right, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for your
Appreciate
question.
your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Wong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for testifying, and you drew the short straw. So thank you for testifying on behalf of your fellow town clerks, and extend my best regards for the hard work they do. But talk to me a little bit about enforcement. How is enforcement now? I think one of the criticisms you had in regards to this is the difficulty in enforcement. But what about enforcement now? Is that wholly 100% validated?
Senator, thank you for your question. As I mentioned, the town of West Hartford has 4,000 dogs. I guarantee you the number is probably closer to 6,000 or 8,000. There are a lot of people who don't register their dogs. And if you go on social media on any given day in the town of West Hartford, there's a page, friends and neighbors, and there's people constantly post, does anybody know whose dog this is? Did you see this dog? And if the dog has a tag on it, a current tag, that when the HCO officer finds that dog, they're going to be able to go into the current database of our dog licensing and get the dog back to its rightful owner as soon as possible. That's one of the benefits of people licensing their dogs. But we have, I think, pretty good compliance in the town of West Hartford. I've spoken to a few of my other colleagues, and they don't have as many dogs registered in their town. So I do think that there's an under-registration of dogs statewide. I think to change the process makes things a little bit more challenging for residents to really understand what the current status of the law is. But people try to be rule followers and do all the necessary things to, quote, make their dog legal.
You cite enforcement. I recognize that as being very important, and you cite West Hartford has 4,000, but you possibly think there may be 6,000 total that would be the dog population. So you got a 2,000 gap, and I believe you in West Hartford to do a great job in enforcement. The opposition to this bill wouldn't change that one bit, would it? I mean, 1 year to 3 years, It's about registering the car, the dog, but also enforcement. This bill doesn't change anything related to that. I think you emphasize enforcement, no doubt. Having a tag and having all the necessary vaccinations is critical, but where's the enforcement? This bill is just making it a little bit easier, perhaps, for that 2,000 that don't register to possibly consider registering their dogs every 3 years instead of one.
Thank you for the question, Senator.
Just the point is, this bill does not do anything to deter enforcement.
I think, Senator, that the current status allows people to be in compliance with state law, and they need to show their rabies vaccination to us before we can issue the current year license. So some people could let it go and lapse for the period in between, and there would be a lot more work on town clerks to get out there and contact people, asking them where is your current rabies vaccination because it's expired.
Well, I'll move on from that, but I do believe that enforcement is the critical key here, and I don't think this bill undermines it in any way. Number two, we did have the exchange with Representative Scott, and one of the questions I thought was a potential revenue loss. But he cited, and also I'll read the testimony from a town clerk that said it would actually be a money saver. For every $2 of cost, they would actually save $1 in that 3-year registration. What do you say to that from a revenue saving basis?
Senator, we would not receive money every single year. And as this rolls out, I'm sort of a logistics person. It would be uncertain as to how many dogs we would license in year 1, year 2, and year 3. The town clerk's role in this entire thing is to act as basically the registrar of dog licenses. We don't have any enforcement power. That resides with the animal control officers of each department in each of our municipalities. So we're basically just the keeper of the records. So.
I appreciate that, and it's a very important role, but would you have any comment in regards to cost savings to a municipality? Should this go from 1 year to 3?
Well, it's unclear as to how we save any money in 3 years compared to what we're currently saving now. The fixed costs are going to be the fixed costs. We have to have the software necessary. There's probably going to be a change necessary to the software development. We still have to print it out every year. We still have to buy the number of tags necessary from the Department of Agriculture. We're still going to have to do a lot of the things every single year. So with only making $1 per dog license, whether it's neutered, spayed, or unaltered at all, we're really talking about de minimis fiscal impact to most communities.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm concerned about originally that we would reduce revenue gains for the town of annual versus every 3 years. But I think you've just confirmed that and reiterated that it isn't really that much of a cost differential. So I appreciate that clarification and your expertise on that arena. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
No problem. Senator Honig, my good delegation member.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One point of discussion with Representative Scott earlier was that it may be possible to align the term of the license with the expiration date of the rabies vaccine. And if something like that were done, would that satisfy your concerns regarding, vaccination documentation?
Thank you for the question, Senator. Currently, dog registrations are done on a fiscal year basis. That's the starting point. So dogs are licensed from July 1st through June 30th, and we start the process in mid-May. So I think as we start tweaking the process that's known to dog owners. I think it's going to become more confusing. And if we just now have dog licenses starting whenever you acquire your dog and you get it vaccinated, there's really no set time. So we're constantly checking on a daily basis. And I thought the intent was to minimize the amount of time that town clerks spend on dog licenses as one of our functions. I think I call it a rolling rabies vaccination expiration date would make things a little bit more difficult for town clerks.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I believe Representative Dubitzky's hand was up from before, so I don't think he has anything else at this time. Representative Delnicki.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could you address the number of different functions that a town clerk actually has and the amount of time that is actually spent on processing one dog license?
Thank you for the question, Representative. So I've been town clerk in the town of West Hartford for 2 years. I've gone through 2 cycles, and we've really got this down to a science because of the volume that we have. So the process, sir, is in mid-May, we send out a registration form to all of our residents, and it comes back either with payment and updated copies of their rabies vaccinations, and then they send in a self-addressed stamped envelope, and we process that through and are able to do it. In the review, we have to review each of these applications. If there's a problem, let's just say that the rabies has expired, our staff has decided that we have developed a letter that we send back to the residents requesting the information. And that has worked out pretty well. For people who come in person, it's been very, very helpful that when they discover that their rabies has expired, they'll call their veterinary place, the doctor, the veterinarian, and put them on speaker, and we can update it after we speak to the veterinarian and make it very user friendly. So we really have been able to mainstream the process here in West Hartford, and it's something that people, I sense, enjoy coming to town hall for this purpose and to pick up that actual tag. And while we talk about the tag, what people do say is that the tag that they're issued, the physical tag, many of the dogs will chew it or it gets lost. So if they're having a hard time in 1 year with that particular tag, I don't know what the condition of that tag would be in year 3. And as I mentioned earlier, the tag that's worn by a dog on its collar is the first place that an animal control officer would look for any dog that goes astray.
So getting back to the tag here, most tags I've seen are metal. So they wouldn't get chewed by the dog unless the dog had metal teeth.
Sir, I owned a dog. Unfortunately, we had to put him to sleep last year around this time. Within 3 days, he was able to chew and gnaw at that tag. It bothered him so much that it was totally unreadable within a week.
So getting back to my thought here. So you spend time sending out applications. You spend time processing applications. You spend time dealing with the dog owner. And it just strikes me that if you could go on every 3 years, it would afford you more opportunities for time to dedicate to other things, other vital statistics that a town clerk has to do. And that's my concern there, that we've always been doing it that way, but we conceivably have an opportunity to save time if you streamline the process.
Thank you for the question, Representative. All the tasks that we do in the town clerk's office take time. We are always find sufficient staff time to perform all the duties. And when one compares the amount of time that we spend on a dog license compared to all the time we spend with the preparation of an absentee ballot, which we're also tasked with. I would contend that the amount of time that we spend dealing with dog licenses is significantly less than the time spent on an absentee ballot, as it should be, because the priority with elections and getting it right the first time is paramount.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward and your testimony, but I have to be candid. I'm struck with the fact that this could be an opportunity to save money without reducing or exposing the public to any dangers and affording town clerks time to do other tasks, filing and checking records and past due tax notices and things of that nature. But thank you coming forward, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Representative. Seeing no other questions at this time, thank you so much for your testimony today, Leon. Up
Thank you.
next, we have number 4, Maria Weingarten. When you're ready, please start.
Thank you. I'm just here to testify because on the list for today are 4 dummy bills. And I just wanted to provide some testimony on those dummy bills. Sorry, I'm just trying to pull it up here. When you get promoted quickly here.
Oh, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Sorry. So there are 4 dummy bills, 7003, 7004, 1341, and 1342. These bills say essentially nothing. They've taken a couple of words and just changed their meaning without so not change their meaning, I should say. So if it was less than 50 days, it's fewer than 50 days. That's the only change in these bills. This is not proper process. This is not, 2 of them are in the House, 2 of them are in the Senate with the intention to later put in language that may never even have gone to a public hearing, never even been vetted ever in a public hearing, or maybe even vetted in a prior year and not moved forward. And I guess it's very concerning to me that this is the process we have now, where we don't discuss bills in a public setting, in a public hearing, where the community knows about it, the press and the media knows about it. I understand in Colorado, this has been an issue where there were so many dummy bills being raised to public hearings, and they amended their constitution years ago to require that each bill is only on one subject and the bill's title reflects the subject matter. So I'm just concerned that dummy bills only serve to prevent checks and balances, and I hope that you will consider not using this process in the future and have a more open and transparent and collaborative process. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Representative Dubitsky.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Maria, for coming in to talk about this. As as perhaps you and I'm sure everybody on the committee knows, I'm sort of on a mission to eliminate dummy bills from the Connecticut legislature. People need to know what their legislators are doing, and to have bills like this, the 4 that you mentioned, up for a public hearing without any substance whatsoever in them, only to be stripped out and have substance substituted after the public hearing, as many of you know, I believe is a affront to the public process of creating legislation, and is an intent to circumvent the public hearing process. Now, again, both sides of the aisle do it. I blame my side of the aisle just as much as I blame the Democrats, but we should not be using dummy bills. And hopefully, if more people like you, Maria, come and testify against them, hopefully we will build a little momentum and and we'll be able to stop this deceptive process. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Haynes.
Thank you, Maria, for your testimony. Sorry, Madam Chair, thank you. Maria, thank you for coming in and thank you for your testimony. I think another thing that you had mentioned in regards to the bills and how the bills need to be one subject, I 100% agree with you. The problem is that we have good things and bad things, and when they combine them into one bill, things suffer, whether it's the good things that get, unfortunately voted against versus things, bad things that get voted for because of the good things that we want to get through. So it's very difficult and it's a tough vote many times for all legislators. To Doug's point, it's really hard to vote against your own bill because your bill got put on something that it shouldn't be on. So I absolutely agree with you. And please, the more you all speak up about these things that are going on up here, the better, because it really makes our job as difficult as you see it to be. So thank you again for coming. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions at this time, have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you.
Up next, number 5, Kirk Carr, please.
Hello. Honorable chairpersons, vice chairpersons, ranking members, and esteemed members of the committee. My name is Kirk Carr, and I've lived in Connecticut since 1980. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. While SB 1341, SB 1342, HB 7003, and HB 704 appear to be minor technical bills, they share a common vulnerability. Each could become a Trojan horse for sweeping legislative changes after leaving this committee. We saw this tactic in 2023 with SB 998, a 4-page bill about conservation easements that at 11 p.m. was suddenly transformed into a 71-page fair share housing bill. That amendment was introduced after the committee process was completed, leaving no opportunity for public input or proper scrutiny. Could that happen again? Absolutely. These 4 bills deal with municipal governance, planning, interlocal agreements, and hiring practices. All are subject to last-minute amendments used in the past to force through controversial zoning mandates, housing policies, or new layers of state oversight. So I asked the committee, how can you prevent this from happening again? I urge you to strictly enforce existing Connecticut General Statute sections 2-24 and 2-26, and to build safeguards into these bills now before they leave this committee. Specifically, add prohibitions to unrelated amendments, clarify that changes must be germane to the bill's original purpose, require public disclosure of all amendments at least 2 legislative days before a vote, and mandate a public hearing if an amendment is significantly altered the bill's original scope. These are common sense measures to ensure the final version of the bills are as transparent as what you're reviewing today. Without them, we risk another SB 998 situation where the public and even legislators don't realize what's happening until it's too late. Please see further elaboration in my submitted written testimony. In full disclosure, I serve as treasurer of CT 169 Strong. However, the opinions expressed here are mine and mine alone, and for which I am singularly responsible. I welcome any questions from the committee on how to safeguard the legislative process and protect these bills from manipulation. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I am not seeing any questions at this time, but I would like to provide for your edification. That bill that you're talking about did not start as a placeholder bill. And while people love to call these dummy bills, they are known as placeholder bills. And there is a purpose to them. In this committee, we try to use them as little as possible. That bill that you referenced was a bill about conservation and about, I believe, making contiguous pieces of conserved land. But you're right, there was a strike all amendment, which is basically par for the course during our legislative process. So while I do respect all of the things that you had to say in terms of how you see the process being outside the building, the process inside the building is a little bit different, and we do our best to make it as transparent as possible, hence why you are actually here testifying in a public hearing about the process. Many states do not allow nearly the amount of public hearings that we do or the amount of public testimony that we hear. So just for those watching at home, wanted to clarify this portion of the process. Thank you so much for your testimony. I'm seeing no questions at this time. Moving on to number 6, Rebecca Auger of the Office of Policy and Management, please.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairs Raman, Kavros-DeGraw, Ranking Members Gordon and Zullo, and other members of the committee. My name is Rebecca Auger. I'm the Responsible Growth Coordinator at the Office of Policy and Management, and I'm here to offer OPM support for HB 7000 regarding changes to implementation of the state's Conservation and Development Policies Plan, which I'll refer to as the C&D Plan. As most of you know, the Continuing Legislative Committee on State Planning and Development recently recommended adoption of the draft 2025 to 30 state C&D plan by the full assembly, following an 18-month iterative and transparent planning process. Working on behalf of the continuing committee during that planning process, OPM engaged many state agencies, councils of governments, municipalities, and other stakeholders in discussions around the need for enhanced coordination among agencies in pursuit of state priority objectives, the role of the C&D plan in improving that coordination, and how to best go about implementing the plan. This bill enables 2 of the implementation recommendations that resulted from those discussions. The first is to increase the monetary threshold for state agency actions that are required to be consistent with the C&D plan. These actions include the acquisition, improvement, or development of real property or the acquisition of public transportation equipment. The current threshold was set in 2007 and is $200,000 per action. This bill would increase that to $1 million and establish a 5-year cycle for updating the threshold in line with inflation, while also requiring a state agency to document how it determined consistency with the plan. Secondly, the bill would repeal priority funding area mapping and requirements. Those laws currently limit state agency support for growth-related projects, which are broadly defined in statute, to certain locations on a statewide map, while allowing exceptions for locally supported projects. OPM has found little evidence of state agencies actively using priority funding area mapping, and we have concerns with statewide mapping for a comprehensive plan being used in what seems like a regulatory manner. The 2025 to 30 C&D plan includes a locational guide map developed using a new methodology, and the entire plan was designed to ensure that that map is used in concert with the policies, targets, and implementation measures of the plan, rather than as a standalone feature. As described in my written testimony, there were several other implementation recommendations included in the 25 to 30 C&D plan. OPM believes that taken together, these recommendations will more effectively guide state agencies to holistically consider, balance, and make progress towards overarching state priorities that are identified in the plan. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. And as always, thank you for all the work that went into this by you, by all the folks involved with the plan. I am grateful that we're putting this forward because I think that this helps people further understand the differences in the plan from previous plans and also gives people an opportunity to still ask questions about them, hence why we're having this public hearing today. I am not seeing any questions at this. Oh, Senator Wong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for presenting, and thank you to Deputy Secretary F being present as well. We're looking at changing some of the priority funding areas. Is there an available map, or is there, I don't see it in the current statute. Is that in the POCD in regards to the priority map changing that we can refer to?
Yes, so the priority funding area map that is currently in effect is in the 2018 to 24 state C&D plan. In the draft 25 to 30 plan, there is a new locational guide map that is a part of that plan and is available on OPM's website.
Through you, could you share that with the committee leadership so we can be familiar as we consider this bill to compare and contrast what maps are changing, if you could? I think the second point I had is the increase from 250,000 to $1 million for the acquisition of property. I fully support that, simply because, as you cited, it's been 2,000 since that threshold number has changed. Would that be correct?
2007.
2007. Okay. And what you're also offering in the statute is to put in indexing So it rises with inflation and as it should be.
Correct. On a 5-year cycle consistent with the term of the C&D plan.
And the sense of urgency with passing through this POCD plan, it has been long past due. Could you articulate the timetable of the long saga of when this is due? And for me, to better understand that upon passage of this POCD state plan, that it starts a new clock for the next 5 years before we consider. Because if we were doing it by the time clock set by hopefully the initiation of this, we're woefully behind schedule. Could you clarify for this committee and the public how far behind we are on this?
Sure. So the current plan, again, is the 2018 to 2023 plan, which was essentially prepared in 2017 as a minor revision to the 2013 to 2018 plan. So you're basically operating on a plan that was developed in 2012 right now. And it took 4 years for legislative sessions to get that plan adopted. And when it was adopted, it was extended to cover 2024 as well. So you have been persisting on a plan that was developed in a very different set of conditions back in 2012. So with the new 25 to 30 plan, we have followed when the current plan was eventually adopted, it set out the new timetable for this 25 to 30 plan, which we have been able to adhere to that timetable, provided that the General Assembly adopts it this session. It will last until 2030, but the process for starting the next plan begins really in 2028.
Thank you for that clarification, and I think that's very helpful to press on the urgency of passage of this. But take me through on the interrelatedness between the state POCD and for many of our municipal leaders that are considering their own POCD plans. I know in Fairfield, one of the challenges is our planning and zoning is considering their decision making based upon this current proposal. And one of the frustrations for individuals engaged in that conversation, this is not passed. And some of the planning and zoning officials are looking forward and basing their decision on this. Can you give some advisement in that, in the sense that the reality is this is not a passed plan, and that the local POCD needs to understand some of the context and the challenges, and how would you advise them to kind of manage their POCD local process?
Yes, thank you for the question, because OPM has received similar questions from municipalities over the last several months. And the statutes regarding local POCDs are clear that local POCDs must consider the state's growth management principles, the 6 growth management principles, which really are the foundation of the existing plan, the one that we are operating on right now. And so in that sense, local POCDs should still look to those growth management principles and address those to the extent possible in their local plan. However, we have been advising, please review this draft plan, because you will essentially be looking to incorporate some of the new concepts of this draft plan to the extent you can. However, no one can hold you accountable to it per se, per statute right now, because it's not adopted. But the fact that the state growth management principles are enumerated in 8-23 for local POCDs to have to consider, that means they're generally responsive to the current plan. So really, it's just please consider some of the concepts that are brought up in this new plan in your local POCD if you're in that period of we are about to adopt, and yet this 25 to 30 plan is not fully adopted by the General Assembly.
That's very helpful, and I'll even admit to you that I'll actually revisit the taping of this to get a better clarity and understanding. And I know that your office has always been readily available, but again, as the good chair cited earlier, this is why we have public hearings. We have an opportunity to speak to the experts and get this information to help our local municipalities and the districts that we represent. So thank you very much for your insight and education in that respects, but more importantly, I look forward to continually be in touch with you as we move this process along. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. While the good senator was talking, it did I think it would be good for, since we are recording this and for the public's sake, how many public hearings were there in the fall of 2023 for people to submit feedback on this plan?
I believe there were 6 public hearings total, or actually there were 8 public hearings, but we also along the way had 6 public information sessions throughout the process of developing the plan, as well as meetings with the continuing committee and then individual meetings with state agencies along the way.
I think there were 5 continuing committee, and the good senator did serve on the committee for a long time prior to our ranking Senator Gordon joining us on that committee. So I'm grateful that we had that much public feedback and honestly, that length of time, even though it's critical that we finally get this passed because it's 2025 and we're working on a 13-year-old plan. I believe that the Senate is taking this up tomorrow and then the House will take it up soon thereafter. So grateful that we are finally getting it through this process in an efficient manner, or at least I hope to be efficient about it. And I don't see any other, Representative Winter gave you a promotion there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With regard to the threshold for actions that are required to be consistent with the plan, is the idea that we're just adjusting for inflation from 2007? Or is it that there's some inflation, but also that original figure of $200,000 is too low?
Thank you for the question. So it's actually a twofold admission here. One, that figure is relatively low when you look across state agencies. There are some state agencies that regularly invest less than that, but there are many state agencies that rarely have a project that is that low in funding. And so it's trying to find a better balance. But the language also introduces the idea that agencies must document in some fashion how they're determining consistency. And that is something that has been missing for a couple of decades. It's really been unknown how agencies are grappling with the C&D plan and their decision-making processes. And so the idea was, well, let's try to capture fewer projects, but introduce a new method of understanding how the C&D plan is being used by agencies.
So it's maybe a narrower set of projects, but a deeper relationship to the C&D plan.
Correct.
Thanks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just double checking. Nobody else in the room, nobody else on the Zoom. Thank you so much, Rebecca. We appreciate you being here. Up next, Eddie Mitchell, number 7, please, when you're ready. I don't know if Eddie is with us. Okay. Unfortunately, Eddie is not with us on Zoom or in the room. So number 8, Chris Stone, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Rahman and the ranking members of the committee for allowing me to testify today in support of House Bill 6995. This is a bill that's been submitted by the Metropolitan District to serve as District Council at the NDC. We have filed written testimony that explains the 2 changes that we'd like to see to our charter. As you know, the Planning and Development Committee is the starting point for any changes to our charter. And ultimately, those changes, if they get out of committee, will go
Chris,
to the
I'm
full
going to
General
interrupt you
Assembly.
for just 1 second.
Sure.
I think there's something going on with your audio. I'm not sure if it's maybe turn the camera off and see if it gets better, but your audio is really crackly.
Okay. Why don't I go off I've got my AirPods on, so that may be part of the problem. Let me go off. Is that any better?
That actually got worse.
Is that any better?
No, that actually got a little bit worse.
Any better?
Keep talking.
Is that any better?
That is, I think. Yes, thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, technology. I'm on the entrance ramp to the informational superhighway, so I apologize for the delay. And I'll try to be brief. The 2 changes that we're asking for, the first stems from a bill that was a special act that was passed in 2014, Special Act 14-21. It has certain reporting requirements for the NDC. We have no problem with the submission of the information that was that we were mandated to submit back in 2014. We've submitted it every year since then. It's really a question of timing. Some of our fiscal year runs from January 1 to December 31 of each year. To have to submit information relative to that year on before January 1st is, if impractical at best, impossible at worst. So what we're asking for is to extend the date, the month to file that to July 1 of the ensuing year, and also as to the report that's required, that is an accounting of our water revenue and expenditures by source, category, and type. That has to be due. That's due by February 15th of each year. We prepare that in the form of an annual audit. We have an unaudited financial statement that we have been able to submit by February 15th, but I believe, and then we submit subsequently a final audited statement on or before July 1st of each year. We think it's just as easy to submit the fully audited statement by the July 1 date rather than submit two. Really, the unaudited statement really doesn't provide a lot of comfort level for either us or the legislature, I would think. So submitting that by July 1 would be helpful. The second change has to do with membership as a member town of the MDC, and by member town, that would be a municipality that asks to be a member town of the MDC, not a town that we impose that on them, but they ask to be a member town. They ask to be a member town for both water and sewer services. And if they were a member town that was not contiguous to an existing member town of the MDC under our present charter developed in 1929, they would not be able to join. We're not asking to add a member town. We're not at this point where we have no interest or have not been approached by any town to be a member. But that exclusion, that requirement that a new town be contiguous to an existing town, we feel is a little antiquated at best, and so we'd like to have that removed. And again, that only relates to member town membership or status. It does not apply to who we can sell water to, who we might be provide services to contractually for sewer services because of topography issues, geological issues, etc. It only speaks to that status as a member town. And that's my testimony. Thank you. I hope you heard me. But if you didn't hear me that well, the written testimony contains much of what I just spoke about.
Thanks so much, Chris. It's still a little fuzzy, but I think we got the gist. I just had one question before we go to others. Are you already serving any non-contiguous towns?
No.
No. Okay.
Well, when you say serving, we don't have any non-contiguous member towns that we serve. We do serve some towns that are not contiguous to the MDC. For example, Portland, we provide water to Portland as they need it, up to, I forget the amount, but it's several million gallons per day. But we serve them water. We serve water to, or as they need it, to New Britain if they request water. We serve. So there's certain pockets of areas that we provide water to. In large part, it's because of the town's need or their inability to be serviced by another water company that, because of either highways, topography, geology, things of that nature, that it just makes sense for the NDC. And quite frankly, and there's parts of the NDC, existing member town areas, not very large areas, but some areas that we have difficulty serving, and they're served by another water company outside the NDC. So really, it comes down to practicality more than anything else.
Thank you so much. I believe Representative Dunicky has a question.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. Good to see you, Attorney Stone. I honestly,
it's good to be seen and almost heard. Thank you.
The audio is kind of challenging for clarity purposes. Just a couple of questions pertaining to the concept of non-member towns joining the district. I know the last one that joined the district was West Hartford, as I recall, and that had to be, what, about probably 30, 35 years ago?
40 years ago.
Okay. So and I realize I'm reading a little bit more into this than what's just on the surface, but how would a town that was not contiguous to the district be served, and why would it join?
Well, they couldn't join right now because they're not contiguous to an existing member town of the NDC. I suppose an example of a real life example of why a former non-member town would want to become a member of the NDC. We can look to the town of West Hartford. Back 40 years ago, they were supplied sewer services and some water services on a contractual basis with the NDC. That town decided to become a member in part, I suppose, to be part of the governance of the NDC, have a greater say than just a contracting party, but as an actual member in the overall management operation of the NDC, the policy making of the NDC. So that's one reason that I can think of, and that's a real life example. And that they've been a member town, as I said, since the mid 1980s, and it's been a success for both the NDC and the town of West Hartford.
So looking at this from the 50,000-foot level, obviously the agreement with Portland has worked out pretty well. I know I was involved in that when they cut over and they received the MDC water along with the well water that they currently have also, and they blend it. If a community were to want to become an MDC member town, would they be subject to the ad valorem tax, or would that be something that's negotiated?
We do not have a special status of membership as being, for example, a water-only customer or a sewer-only customer. So short answer to your question is a town wanting to become a member would be all in, both as to water and to sewer services, and they would be subject to the ad valorem tax. And by the way, for the other members, the ad valorem tax is that tax which supports our sanitary sewer side of the house. Water rates support the water side.
And more than likely, last one question, and this goes back to the bonded indebtedness of the district. With the Clean Water Project, I want to say that's got to be, I hope I'm getting this right, about $1 billion and a half indebtedness.
That's a little on the low side.
So
it's over $2 billion in indebtedness.
So if a town were to join the district, would they then become subject to the indebtedness of the district as a whole?
Yes. They would have their full faith and credit would be behind the bonds issued, not just for the Clean Water Project, but for our regular capital improvement program, both on the water and the sewer side.
Because I know obviously the MDC has, to the best of my knowledge, one of the few reservoirs that does not have PFAS contamination. Is that correct?
I don't want to speak to whether we're one of the few, but we don't have any PFAS in our reservoirs.
I only mention that from the standpoint that it's an opportunity, and quite frankly, the agreement with Portland, to the best of my knowledge and talking to folks there, has worked out well, along with the fact that supplying water with East Granby, Windsor Locks, Farmington, South Windsor, as an aside.
Just by way of clarification, and you mentioned the Clean Water Project, The Clean Water Project is paid for by a surcharge on our water bills. In the Special Act of 2014, non-member town customers, water customers, are not responsible for and do not contribute to the Clean Water Project cost. They do not pay the Clean Water Project surcharge.
So then that would be a situation where, let's just say rhetorically, South Windsor were to join the district, then the taxpayers there would become subject to that indebtedness for the Clean Water
That's
Project?
correct. That's correct.
I just wanted to get all this stuff, all this information out from the standpoint of somebody would be going, if they were going to actually do this, if we go ahead and we make the changes, a community, if they were to join the district, would assume a portion of the indebtedness for the Clean Water Project, and of course, for whatever updates that might have to occur when the reservoirs and the filtration plants are serviced?
Yes. And again, the purpose of this requested change to our charter isn't a function of having someone out there that is looking to become a member, or that the NBC is looking to a town to become a member. It's really just to eliminate what we consider to be an artificial, inapplicable restriction on anyone becoming a member, whether or not one decides to become a member for all the reasons that you're bringing up, or other reasons, more positive reasons of becoming a member of a larger regional municipal authority that has we feel has certainly more authority and more ability to meet the needs of our customers, has a group of 9 right now, than perhaps each of our member towns individually could meet.
And currently, are there any prospects of cities or towns that are not in the district at this point that might want to join?
Not that I'm aware of, no. Again, that would be up to the town, because that would be up to the town.
Right. I just wondered if there were any negotiations or discussions in the background that might be occurring at this point.
No, there's not.
Well, I appreciate you coming forward. I wish we had a little better audio, because I'm sure this was kind of difficult for folks.
I apologize to the group. I don't know what the problem is. Maybe because I'm out of state. Maybe they don't have. Maybe the airways aren't as good. I don't know.
Next time, Attorney Stone, I hope to see you here in person.
I'd love that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Representative Delnicki. I am not seeing any other questions at this time, so thank you so much for your testimony today. Have a great afternoon. And
thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm going to go back to Eddie Mitchell, but I don't see him online and he's not in the room. So my guess is, unfortunately, we are going to miss his testimony today. Thank you, everybody, for being here. This was a quick one. As you know, we are going into session at 5 p.m. today, so we kind of had to do this as a formality in some regard. But yes, well, the House is in session at 5 today. So thank you so much for being here, and that concludes our public hearing. Take care.